My coworker took a video of me outside of work to prove I wasn't disabled. I thought I was overreacting when I first saw it, but that was when everything changed. Let me back up. I have chronic pain. The way I explain it to people who don't live with it is, imagine if your baseline daily pain was a 6 out of 10. Most people walk around at a 0 or maybe a 2 if they're tired or sore. For me, it's like someone's constantly twisting a knot in my lower back, and some days it radiates down my legs. Good days I'm at a 4. Miraculous days I'm lower, but those are rare. On bad days I hit a 7 or 8 like stepping on a Lego that never goes away. I have canes for those days. I also have a handicap placard for my car and I'm legally disabled. I filed all the paperwork with my employer when I was hired, just in case I ever needed accommodations. I work 2 jobs. My full-time is corporate, but I also work part-time at a different place because I like staying busy. It helps with my anxiety and I do it for the extra savings. My part-time job recently moved me to a location closer to home. I love it. My new boss, Amy, is great. She gets that I have limits, but she also trusts me. The other assistant coordinator is Casey. We get along okay, but everyone knows Casey wants a promotion bad. Like really bad, she's been gunning for it for years. I'm open that I don't want one. Any promotion from my position would be full-time and I already have a full-time job, so Casey sees me as competition even though I keep telling her I'm not. That brings us to last Sunday. It was a bad pain day. I woke up at a 7, maybe an 8. I knew I'd need my cane. I grabbed it, put on shoes that wouldn't make it worse, and drove to work. I hung my handicap placard on the rearview mirror like always. I parked in the accessible spot. I walked in with my cane and I did my job. I was slow, but I got through the shift. After work, I was unlocking my car when I saw someone out of the corner of my eye. I turned and there was Casey standing beside her car maybe 20 feet away, phone held up, pointed straight at me. She wasn't pretending to text. She was filming me. I froze. Then I felt my face go hot. I said, "Are you recording me right now?" She dropped the phone and smiled. "Just checking something." "Checking what?" She shrugged and got in her car, didn't answer, drove off. Was shaking. I thought maybe I was overreacting, maybe I'd misread it. Maybe she was taking a picture of something else, but my gut told me no, that was targeted. That was her trying to catch me doing something. But what? I was just unlocking my car. I used a cane. That's not a crime. The next day at work, I went to Amy. I told her what happened. Amy's face went tight. She asked Casey to come into the office. Casey denied it at first, then said, "I was just taking a video of the clouds." She happened to be in the frame. I said, "You were facing directly at me. You didn't turn the phone until you saw me see you." Casey looked at Amy and said, "She's paranoid." Amy didn't buy it. She told Casey to delete any video if it existed. Casey pulled out her phone, scrolled through her camera roll, and showed us an empty screen. See? Nothing. I knew she could have saved it elsewhere, but I couldn't prove it. Amy warned her not to record anyone at work without consent, and that was the end of the meeting. Except it wasn't the end. Over the next week, I noticed little things. Casey would linger near my desk when I stood up. She'd watch me walk to the break room. She asked me once, "You're not using your cane today, feeling better?" in this syrupy voice. I said I was having a good day. She said, "Good to see you're not faking it." I froze. "What did you just say?" She walked away. I reported that to Amy too. Amy talked to Casey again. Casey claimed she was making a joke. Amy gave her a formal written warning. I thought that would be it. But then I got a text from a friend who works at a store near my part-time job. She said, "Hey, is there a woman from your work who drives a silver Honda? She was parked outside my store today filming the parking lot." I thought it was weird. My stomach dropped. I asked for the time. It was right around when I'd been at that store doing a quick grocery run. I had used my handicap placard because my back was screaming. I'd only been inside for 10 minutes. Casey was following me. She was documenting my movements, trying to prove I wasn't disabled enough to deserve the placard or the cane or the accommodations. I went to the police. I told them I suspected someone at my work was stalking me and recording me without consent. The officer asked, "Did she threaten you?" "No." "Did she touch you?" "No." "Has she posted the videos anywhere?" "I don't think so, but she recorded me in a public place. It's legal to film in public." I said, "It's not legal if it's harassing. It's not legal if she's following me." He shrugged. "We can't do much unless she does something more aggressive. If she keeps it up, come back and we'll file a report." That was it. I felt like I was banging my head against a wall. I went home, sat on my couch and stared at the ceiling. I thought, am I overreacting? I'm disabled. I have medical records. I have specialists. I have paperwork. Why does this woman think she has the right to judge my body? Why does she think she can become my shadow? I called my mom. She's the calmest woman I know. She said, "Baby, she's jealous. You're doing your job without drama. You're not competing." That pisses her off because she wants a reason to get you out of the way. She's trying to manufacture proof that you're not really disabled so she can make a case that you're getting special treatment. That made sense. It also made me furious. The next day, I talked to a lawyer. Not for a lawsuit yet, just to know my rights. The lawyer said recording in public is generally legal, but if it's part of a campaign of harassment, and if she's using it to interfere with my work or medical accommodations, we might have a hostile workplace claim. She told me to document everything, keep a log, save any screenshots of her watching me, so I started a journal. Every time Casey stared too long, I wrote it down. Every time she made a comment, I wrote it down. I even started parking in different parts of the lot to see if she'd follow. She did, twice. Then about 2 weeks after the first incident, I got called into Amy's office. Casey, I got called into Amy's office. Casey was already sitting there and she had her phone out on the table. Amy looked pale. Casey showed me something I need you to see, Amy said. Her voice was flat. Casey turned her phone toward me. It was a video of me walking from my car into the grocery store. No cane. I was moving fast because the cold air was hitting my back and I wanted to get inside. The video zoomed in on my legs, then on my face. I could see the timestamp. It was the same day my friend told me about the silver Honda. You've been following me, I said. That's stalking, Casey smiled. That's public property. I was doing a little investigation. You said you needed a handicap spot, but look at you walking just fine. No cane, no limp. You're not disabled. You're just lazy. Amy looked at me. Is this true? Do you sometimes walk without a cane? I wanted to scream. Yes, because on good days I don't need it. That's how chronic pain works. I have medical documentation. I have a specialist. I have a disability determination from the state. She has no right to follow me and film me. Casey said, I'm just protecting the company. If you're frauding the system, we could get sued for providing accommodations you don't need. I said, you're not protecting anything. You want my job. You want a promotion. You're trying to get me fired. Amy held up a hand. Both of you stop, Casey. You're on thin ice. You recorded a coworker without consent on multiple occasions, and you've admitted to following her. That's harassment. I'm going to escalate this to HR. You're suspended pending investigation. Casey's face went red. That's not fair. I have proof she's faking, Amy said. You have proof she walked without a cane one time. That's not proof of fraud. That's proof she has good days. Now leave. Casey grabbed her phone and walked out, shooting daggers at me. I sat there shaking. Amy looked at me and said, I believe you, but HR might not. They're going to want a doctor's note, your accommodation paperwork, everything. Do you have a lawyer? I nodded. I talked to one already. Good, send them everything. I'll do what I can, but Casey has friends in HR. She's been here 7 years and she's white. You know how that goes. I knew exactly how that goes. I'm black, I'm young, and I'm disabled. In Texas, that's 3 strikes before you even walk in the room. Over the next week, I submitted my medical records, my disability award letter, and a written statement about every time Casey watched me or commented on my body. The lawyer sent a letter to HR warning them about a hostile work environment and potential ADA violations. HR called me in. 2 white women in suits sat across from me. They said Casey had received a final warning, but they couldn't prove she was stalking me because the videos were taken in public and she claimed she was documenting a concern. They said I should try to work alongside her and they offered conflict resolution mediation. I said no. I said I wouldn't feel safe. They told me I could take a week of unpaid leave if I needed space. I took the leave. I spent the week updating my resume and applying for other part-time jobs. I didn't want to leave Amy, she was good, but Casey wasn't going to stop, and HR was protecting her. On my last day of leave, Casey posted something on social media. A friend sent me a screenshot. It was a picture of a handicap placard with the caption, some people use these to park closer to the store so they don't have to walk far. Too bad they don't need them. Fraud is real. She didn't tag me, but everyone knew who she was talking about. I filed a police report for harassment. The officer said again they couldn't do anything because she hadn't threatened me physically. That's when I realized the system wasn't built for me. It was built for people like Casey. I quit the part-time job 2 weeks later. Amy cried. She said she was sorry she couldn't do more. I told her it wasn't her fault. Casey got the promotion 3 months after I left. I heard through the grapevine she's still there filming the next person she wants to destroy. I'm still angry, but I'm also not surprised. That was the first time I saw how far someone would go to prove I was lying about my own body. The second story is different. It's about a boss who asked me to host his entire family for a week. And I'm still not sure how I didn't laugh in his face. Let me set the stage. I work at a mid-sized company. I've been there for 6 years. I'm good at my job, like really good. I manage a team of 8. Our numbers are solid and I've never had a complaint. But I'm a woman and I had a baby 2 years ago. That changed everything. Our CEO, let's call him Dick because that's what he is, has a golden boy named Bob. Bob started out under me. He was a solid employee, but nothing special. Then he got married, had a kid, and his wife became a stay-at-home mom. Dick loved that. He thought Bob was a real family man, started promoting him. Over 18 months, Bob went from reporting to me to being at my level, then above me. Meanwhile, I was working my ass off, coming back from maternity leave, and suddenly my responsibilities were reassigned. I got a silent demotion, no email, no meeting, just fewer projects and a smaller bonus. When I asked why, Dick said, we figured you'd want to focus on the baby. I didn't scream, I smiled and said, my baby is 2, I'm focused on work. He shrugged. Now Bob is 2 levels above me, he's never in the office, he misses deadlines. He sleeps at his desk when he does show up. But Dick doesn't care because Bob has a wife and a toddler and a dog. He's a good dad. So last week Bob texts me out of the blue, not an email, a text. He says, hey, we need to go out of town for a week in January for a family thing. Can you host my wife, my toddler, and my dog for the week? If not, I'll ask the company to pay for a hotel, but that's a hassle. I stared at my phone for a full minute, then I read it again. He wasn't asking if I could take care of his dog. He was asking me to house his entire family, his wife and child and dog, in my home for a week. I don't even have that kind of relationship with my own sister. I texted back, that doesn't work for me. He replied, come on, it'll be fun, the kids will play together. I don't have kids, I said no. He said, I'll talk to Dick about it. And that's when I knew I was in trouble, because if Bob went to Dick, Dick would make it an order, or worse, Dick would say I'm not a team player, and then I'd lose even more of my job. I spent the next 2 hours pacing my kitchen trying to figure out how to say no to the CEO. I thought about quitting. I thought about lying and saying I was going out of town too, but I couldn't afford to lose my salary. My husband works, but we've got bills. Then I got a calendar invite from Dick, subject, team culture check-in. For the next morning, I knew what that was. I showed up to the meeting with my game face on. Dick was sitting behind his desk, smiling like a snake. He said, Bob mentioned you weren't on board with helping him out this January. I think it's a great opportunity for team bonding. You have the space, your kid is too, they'd love having a little friend, and you'd be doing Bob a huge favor. I said, my house is not a hotel, I don't have the room. And I don't feel comfortable hosting people I don't know. Dick's smile didn't change. You know Bob's, you know his wife, they're good people, and it's only a week. I said no. He leaned forward. I'm not asking. I stood up. And I'm not doing it. If you want to fire me for not hosting your Golden Boys family, then go ahead, but I'd love to see that in writing. He didn't fire me, but he made my life hell for the next month. He gave me the worst shifts, the crappiest projects, and started a whisper campaign that I wasn't a team player. I started applying for other jobs that week. And that's where I am now. Still employed, still not hosting Bob's family, but looking over my shoulder every time Dick walks by. I'm not sure if I overreacted, but I know I'm right. That kind of workplace pressure is one thing. But sometimes the messiest situations come from people you barely know. Like the time I saw my girlfriend's sister making out with a stranger at the coffee shop where I worked. I was 17, working the afternoon shift at a local coffee shop. It was a Saturday in May, around 2 in the afternoon, and we were slammed. I was on register, my coworker was on drinks, and there was a line out the door. I wasn't even paying attention to the customers at the back until my coworker nudged me and said, dude, look at those two, they need to get a room. I glanced over. There was a couple in the corner booth full-on making out, not just a quick kiss, I mean hands everywhere, tongues, the whole thing in a coffee shop at 2 in the afternoon. I rolled my eyes and kept working. But then the woman pulled back for a second and I recognized her face. It was Sam, my girlfriend's sister. She was 24, engaged to a guy named Derek and getting married in July. That was 2 months away. I froze. My coworker said, you okay? I said, yeah, I think I know her. He laughed. Well, she's not being very discreet. I didn't know what to do. I ducked behind the counter and tried to stay out of sight. They stayed for another 20 minutes making out, laughing, touching. The guy was Derek. I'd met Derek twice. He was tall with brown hair and glasses. This guy was shorter, stocky with a beard. Definitely not Derek. They finally left. I breathed a sigh of relief and grabbed a rag to wipe down the tables. I figured the coast was clear. But as I was wiping the booth they'd been at, the door swung open and Sam walked back in. She must have forgotten something, or maybe she was using the bathroom. She saw me and her face went white. She said, you. I said, hey Sam. She walked up to me, her voice low and shaking. You saw me. I know you saw me. I said, I didn't see anything. I've been busy. She grabbed my arm. Don't lie to me. You were staring. You were right there the whole time. You have to promise me you won't tell anyone. I pulled my arm back. Sam, I don't know what you're talking about. She was crying now. Please, I can't lose Derek. The wedding is in 2 months. Everything is paid for. My parents will kill me. Please just say you didn't see anything. I was 17. I didn't know how to handle a crying 24-year-old. I said, okay, I didn't see anything. She looked at me like she didn't believe me, but she nodded and left. I thought that was the end of it. But by the time I got home, my phone was blowing up. My girlfriend, let's call her Jen, texted me. What happened with you and my sister? She's freaking out. She said you guys talked at your work. I texted back, nothing happened. She just came back to look for something. Jen, she said you saw something. She's crying. What did you see? I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. I was a kid. I didn't want to start drama. I didn't want to be the one to blow up a wedding. Then Jen called. I let it go to voicemail. She texted again. She wants to meet you tonight. She's driving to my house. We can pick you up. I texted. I can't leave. My parents won't let me out this late. Jen, she said she'll drive to your house. Just sneak out. I was terrified. My parents were strict. If I got caught sneaking out, I'd be grounded for months. I said, I can't. Tell her we can talk tomorrow. Jen, she's really upset. Please just come outside for 5 minutes. I didn't reply. I turned my phone off and went to my room. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. I felt like I was the one who had done something wrong. The next morning, I had to go back to work. I walked in and my manager said, hey, someone's here to see you. It was Sam. She was sitting at the same booth she'd been in the day before, nursing a coffee. She looked exhausted. She said, sit down. I sat. She said, I know you saw me. I need you to understand something. That guy, that's my ex. I ran into him at the grocery store and we started talking and one thing led to another. It was a mistake. I love Derek. I love him so much. The wedding is everything to me. If you tell anyone, you will ruin my life. I said, I'm not going to tell anyone. She said, you have to swear on your girlfriend's life. I said, Sam, I already said I didn't see anything. I'll forget about it. She nodded slowly. Then she said, okay, but if I hear one word about this, I'll tell Jen that you tried to kiss me. I felt like I'd been punched. What? That's insane, she shrugged. It's my word against yours. You're a 17-year-old boy. She'll believe me. I didn't say anything. I got up and went to the back room. I called Jen and told her everything, the whole story, the making out, the begging, the threat. I was crying by the end. Jen was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I believe you. I said, really? She said, I've always thought Sam was a bit of a liar. She's cheated before. I didn't want to believe it, but Derek deserves to know. I said, I don't want to be the one to tell him. Jen said, I'll talk to my parents. And she did. That night she told her mom told her dad called Derek. Derek called off the wedding the next week. Sam came to my house. She screamed at me through the door. My mom called the police and Sam left before they got there. Jen and I broke up about a month later, not because of the drama, we just fizzled out, but the whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. I learned that some people will destroy anyone to protect their secrets, and I was just a kid who wanted to make coffee and go home. I never saw Sam again. I hope Derek's doing okay. I heard he moved to another state. And me? I still work in coffee shops, but I keep my head down. I don't need to see anyone else's mess. Looking back, I think about how easy it is to get pulled into other people's disasters. One minute you're wiping a table, the next you're the center of a family meltdown. I didn't ask for that role. I didn't want it, but once you see something you can't unsee it. And once you know, staying quiet feels like lying. So I told the truth, and the truth wrecked a wedding. That's not on me. That's on the person who couldn't keep her hands off her ex in a public coffee shop 2 months before her wedding. I don't regret it now. But at the time I thought my life was over. My girlfriend broke up with me, her sister hated me, and my parents were furious that the cops came to our door. It was a mess, but it wasn't my mess. I just happened to clean tables near it. I thought that coffee shop mess would be the most drama I'd ever see, but life has a way of topping itself. A few years later, I was working a full-time job and a part-time gig to pad my savings and keep my anxiety in check. I have chronic pain. I don't look disabled, but I am most days. I'm at a solid 6 on the pain scale, like a pulled muscle that never heals. Rare good days I'm a 4. On really bad days, I use a cane. I've got the handicap placard on my rearview mirror and the license plate marker. Paperwork on file with HR. Everything's legal and above board. I was moved to a new location closer to home. Loved my new boss, Amy. My coworker Casey and I were both assistant coordinators. Casey wanted a promotion badly. I didn't. I already had a full-time job. This part-time thing was extra cash and kept me busy. Casey knew I wasn't competition, but she still acted weird around me sometimes. I figured it was just ambition. Then came a Sunday when my pain spiked to a 7. I used my cane. I parked in the handicap spot. I did my shift limping a little, but I got the work done. The next day, Casey comes up to me all smiles and says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Sure." She pulls out her phone and shows me a video. It's me from Sunday walking from my car to the store. I'm not limping in that clip. I'm carrying my cane but not using it. She says, "You were walking just fine. How come you need a handicap placard?" I stared at her. Because I have chronic pain, some days are worse than others. Sunday was bad. That video doesn't show the whole day. She said, "I think you're faking it. I've been watching you for weeks. You only use the cane when the boss is around." That hurt. I said, "That's not true. And you've been filming me without my permission?" She shrugged. "It's public property. I can film anything outside." I went to Amy, showed her the video, told her what Casey said. Amy looked uncomfortable. She said, "I'll talk to her, but legally she's right about filming on public property. I can't force her to delete it." I said, "What about the hostile work environment? She's accusing me of faking a disability." Amy sighed. "I'll have a word." Nothing changed. Casey started showing the video to other coworkers. I heard whispers. People I thought were friendly started asking, "So are you really disabled or what?" I'd explain, and some would nod, but others had that look. "You know the one, like you're a liar." I went to HR. They said since the video was taken off the clock and off company property, they couldn't discipline Casey, but they'd note it. I asked about the hostile work environment. They said I'd need to document more instances, so I did. I kept a log. Every comment, every side-eye, every time I felt like I was being watched. Over the next month, Casey stepped up her game. She'd take pictures of me walking through the parking lot. She'd time my brakes. She even followed me to my car once and asked, "Why aren't you limping now?" "You forgot your cane today, huh?" I said, "It's a good day, Casey. That's how chronic pain works. It changes." She said, "I don't believe you." I started getting anxious coming to work. My pain got worse from the stress. I'd have to take more sick days. Amy noticed. She said, "I'm sorry, but my hands are tied unless she does something on company time." Then Casey sent an email to the entire department with the video attached and a subject line, "Proof that our disabled coworker is a fraud." That was on company time, using company email. I forwarded it to HR and Amy. Amy called Casey into a meeting. Casey denied sending it, but the email trail was clear. She got a written warning. I thought that would be the end, but Casey didn't stop. She started telling customers I was a liar. One customer complained to me asking, "Are you really disabled? Your coworker said you park in handicapped spots, but you don't need them." I lost it. I went to Amy crying. Amy said, "I'm sorry. I'll talk to her again." I said, "What about the police? She's stalking me. She followed me to my car." Amy said, "You can try, but I don't know if they'll do anything." I went to the police station. I showed them the emails, the photos, the video. The officer looked at me and said, "Ma'am, she took this video on a public sidewalk. That's not a crime, and you don't have evidence that she's threatening you." I said, "She's harassing me because of my disability." He shrugged. You'd need a lawyer for that civil matter. I'm black and I'm in Texas. I knew what that shrug meant. I wasn't going to get help here. I went home and cried. My partner said I should quit, but I liked the job. I needed the money and I was tired of letting Casey win. A week later, Casey came up to me and whispered, I'm going to prove you're faking. I'm not stopping until everyone knows. I said, Casey, why do you care so much? You want the promotion? You can have it. I don't want it, she said, because people like you make it harder for people like me who actually work hard. I didn't even know what that meant. I started recording every interaction on my phone, voice memos. I saved every email. I built a folder. One day, Casey came into the break room while I was eating lunch and started filming me. I said, you're on company property now. That's against policy. She said, I'm documenting. For the lawsuit, I said, what lawsuit? She smirked. You'll see. I called a lawyer, free consultation. The lawyer said she's creating a hostile work environment based on disability. That's an ADA violation, but you need evidence that the company is aware and not acting. I sent the whole folder to Amy and HR. I said, if you don't do something, I'm filing a complaint with the EEOC. 2 days later, Casey was suspended pending investigation. I thought I'd won. But then I got called into a meeting with Amy and HR. They said, we've investigated. Casey says you've been hostile to her and she felt she needed to document your condition for her own protection. We can't prove either side, but to avoid further conflict, we're moving you to a different location. I said, so she gets to stay and I get moved? She's the one who followed me and filmed me. HR said, it's the best we can do, take it or leave. I left, I quit, I cried in my car. I thought about suing, but lawyers are expensive and I was exhausted. That was a year ago. I'm still looking for a job where I don't have to explain my body to anyone. I still have chronic pain. I still use my cane on bad days. And I still flinch when someone pulls out a phone near me. I don't know if Casey ever got her promotion. I don't care. I just wanted to work and go home. But some people will cross any line to prove you don't deserve what you have. I wasn't faking. I'm not faking. And I hate that I still feel like I have to prove it. A few days later, my girlfriend kept texting me, you need to come over. My sister is freaking out. What did you see? I told her over and over I didn't see anything, ask your sister. But she wouldn't drop it. Finally, I said, fine, I'll come over after school tomorrow, but I'm not staying long. The next day I walked to her house. Her sister Sam was already there, sitting on the couch with her arms crossed. My girlfriend was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy. Sam looked at me and said, you saw me at the coffee shop, right? I know you did. I said, I saw two people making out. I didn't even know it was you until later. She said, you can't tell anyone, especially not Mark. Mark was her fiancé. The wedding was 2 months away. I said, I wasn't going to. I don't even know that guy. She said, good. Keep it that way. But then my girlfriend came in and said, what's going on? And Sam snapped, nothing. He didn't see anything. We're done. My girlfriend looked at me. I shrugged. It felt gross. I left and walked home. I thought it was over. May 20th, I was working the afternoon shift, same coffee shop. The guy from before came in alone. He ordered a latte and then said, hey, you're the kid who saw me with Sam, right? My stomach dropped. I don't know what you're talking about. He laughed. Relax, I'm not gonna hurt you. I just wanted to say sorry if she freaked on you. She's a little intense. I just nodded. He said, look, I'm not a bad guy. She told me she was single. I found out last week she's engaged. I ended it, so you don't have to worry about me. I said, okay, thanks. He left. I texted my girlfriend, your sister's side guy came into my work. He said he broke it off. She replied, what? Don't tell me that. I don't want to know. I said, I thought you should know. She said, just let it go, please. May 23rd, I got a call from Sam. She sounded different, scared. Did you tell Mark? No, I said. I haven't said anything to anyone except my girlfriend, and she said she doesn't want to know. She said, good, because someone told him. He came over last night screaming. He said he knew everything. He said he saw pictures. I said, it wasn't me, I swear. She said, I believe you, but my girlfriend thinks I told her and she told Mark. I don't know, it's a mess. A mess, that's all she said. I hung up. 2 days later, I saw on Facebook that the wedding was canceled. My girlfriend texted me, it's off. My parents are devastated. Sam is moving out of state for a while. I didn't reply. What could I say? I never wanted to be in the middle, but I was, and the whole thing blew up anyway. That was the first time I realized that keeping a secret doesn't keep you clean. You still get splashed. May 30th, final update from me. I posted on Reddit that night. Sam left. My girlfriend broke up with me because she said I caused too much drama, her words. I caused drama. I just worked at a coffee shop and 2 people kissed in front of me. But okay, I learned something. Don't get involved unless you want to be burned. And if you do get involved, tell the truth early. Because lies just make the fire bigger. I thought that was the end of my workplace drama, but then I started a new job a few years later. Full-time office work, it paid okay. My boss, let's call him Bob, was the CEO's golden boy. I was just a middle manager. Bob had a baby. His wife became a SAHM. The CEO, Dick, actual nickname everyone used behind his back, thought Bob was a hero for being a family man. Bob got promoted, then promoted again. He outranked me. Meanwhile, I had a baby too, and instead of a promotion, I got a silent demotion. No raise in 4 years, but Bob could show up late, nap at his desk, miss entire weeks for family emergencies, and Dick would throw him another bonus. I swallowed it. I figured that's just how office politics work. Then one day Bob texted me out of the blue, hey, we have a family emergency. Can you house my wife, toddler, and dog for a week in January? If not, I'll ask the company to pay for a hotel. I stared at my phone. How's his family? For a week. We've never even had lunch together. I didn't reply. He texted again. It's just for work meetings. We have to go out of state. She doesn't want to stay alone. I said, Bob, I have a toddler myself. My house is small. I can't take in 3 extra people and a dog for a week. He said, can you at least ask your husband? Maybe he'd be okay with it. I said, I'm not asking him. The answer is no, I'm sorry. He didn't reply. The next day, Dick called me into his office. Bob says you refuse to help his family in a crisis. That's not the team spirit we value here. I said, I have a family of my own. I'm not a hotel and it's not my job to host his wife and dog. Dick leaned back. You know, Bob's wife is having a tough time, postpartum anxiety. He needs support from the team. I thought you'd be more compassionate. I said, compassion doesn't mean I have to give up my home for a week. I offered to help find a pet sitter. That's reasonable. Dick waved his hand. Fine, we'll pay for their accommodations, but I'm disappointed. I walked out shaking. I went to my desk and updated my resume. 2 weeks later, Bob's wife and kid and dog were in a hotel 3 blocks from my house. I saw them at the park once. Bob was there. He didn't wave. A month after that, I got called into a meeting with HR. We've had complaints that you're not a team player. Bob says you refused a reasonable request. We're moving you to a different department. No raise, no promotion, just a sideways move to a worse desk. I didn't fight it. I was too tired, but I started looking for jobs every night. I found one 6 weeks later and gave my notice. On my last day, Bob came by and said, good luck. Hope your new boss is more understanding. I smiled. I hope your next assistant doesn't have a baby. You might ask them to move in too. He walked away. I clocked out for the last time. I haven't looked back. Some people will always expect you to sacrifice yourself for their comfort. I learned to say no. It cost me a job, but it saved my sanity. And I never house anyone's family again. I don't care how many meetings they have, but that wasn't the last of it. After I quit, I sat at home with my toddler and my laptop and I typed out everything. Bob, Dick, the sideways move. The 4 years without a raise. I posted it on one of those work advice subreddits just to get it off my chest. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few people telling me I was overreacting. Instead, I got hundreds of comments. Most of them said I was underreacting. One person wrote, this is the problem with staying in toxic jobs too long. You get habituated to the chaos and your normal meter breaks. OOP is severely underreacting. Another said, OOP is underreacting, yes, but if she reacts at all, that's being too emotional and probably ovulating. Hope her job search is going well. That sarcastic comment stung because I had heard that exact phrase from Dick before. You're being emotional. Is it that time of the month? I never reported it because I thought it was just his personality. But reading those strangers validate my anger made me realize how deep the gaslighting had gone. I scrolled further. Someone wrote, yep, just another crazy woman on the rag. I don't know how many of my husband's friends have said they divorced because their wives were crazy. Last year, one of his friends died, found out he was a cheating pose. So yeah, that excuse is often thrown around. I stared at that comment for a long time because that was the culture at my office. Bob got promoted for being a family man. I got demoted for having a baby. Same event, different gender, opposite outcome. I wasn't crazy. I was a woman in a workplace that rewarded men for the exact same choices it punished women for. A few weeks after I posted, my old coworker from that office reached out. She said Bob had been put on probation for something else, falsifying timesheets. Dick had to step back for a while because the board got involved. I felt a tiny, petty satisfaction, but mostly I felt relieved I wasn't there anymore. I started a new job 3 months later, remote, flexible hours. My boss is a woman who actually takes her own sick days. I haven't been asked to house anyone's family. I haven't been called emotional. I get paid what I'm worth. I think about all 3 of those stories now, sitting here typing this. The coffee shop one taught me that secrets don't stay buried. The disabled coworker one taught me that some people will try to prove you're a fraud no matter what you do. And the boss one taught me that you can say no to power even when it costs you. But the hardest lesson is that none of it was really about me. That woman kissing her side guy in the coffee shop was desperate. Casey filming me with her phone was jealous. Bob asking me to host his family was entitled. They all wanted something from me that I wasn't obligated to give. Silence, proof, sacrifice. I'm done being used as a prop in someone else's drama. I still have chronic pain. I still have a toddler. I still have a backbone I didn't know I had until I had to use it. And I never ever house anyone's family again, not even for a night, not even if they beg. The answer is no. And that's okay. I don't know why I thought leaving that office would be the end of it. But life has a way of throwing you into the same kind of fire, just with different fuel. A few years after the Bob and Dick situation, I was in a different job, part-time actually. I had a full-time remote gig that paid the bills, but I took this second job at a local office because I liked the work and it kept my anxiety in check. The team was small. My boss, Amy, was a godsend. She actually listened when I explained my chronic pain condition. I told her straight up, I have chronic pain. Most days I'm at a 6 on the pain scale. Some days I'm higher. I have a handicap placard and canes for when I need them. I have all the paperwork already filed for accommodations. She nodded and said, okay. Let me know what you need. That was it. No drama, but there was Casey. Casey was the other assistant coordinator, same position as me, and Casey wanted Amy's job bad, everyone knew it. I didn't care about promotions, I already had a full-time job, this was extra cash and something to do with my hands, but Casey saw me as a threat anyway. It started small. Casey would make comments about my parking spot. "Oh, you parked in the handicap spot today? Rough morning." I'd just shrug. Then she'd ask, "What's wrong with you anyway?" I'd say, "Chronic pain, it flares up." She'd tilt her head and say, "Huh, you seemed fine yesterday." I didn't engage, I figured she was just bitter. Then one Sunday I was having a bad day, pain levels were at a 7 or 8, I used my cane to get around. I went to the grocery store to pick up a few things, nothing dramatic. I walked slowly, leaned on the cart, used the cane when I needed to. I was in and out in 20 minutes. Monday morning, Casey was already at her desk when I walked in. No cane that day. I was at a 4 miracle day. She looked up and said, "Hey, I saw you at the grocery store yesterday." My stomach dropped. "Oh yeah, yeah. We're using a cane, that's rough." I said, "Yeah, it was a bad day." She nodded, but she had this weird smile. Later that week, Amy pulled me aside. "Hey, HR forwarded something to me. Casey submitted a complaint. She says she has video evidence that you're not actually disabled." I felt like I'd been punched. "Video evidence?" "Yeah, she filmed you at the grocery store. She says you were walking fine without the cane for part of the time, and then you picked up the cane when you noticed people watching." I said, "Amy, I was using the cane because I was in pain. I don't use it every second. Sometimes I lean on the cart or brace myself against a shelf. That's how chronic pain works. It fluctuates." She looked at me with sympathy. "I know, but she took it to HR and they have to investigate." I went home that night and cried. I thought about all the paperwork I had filed, the doctor's notes, the diagnosis, the years of physical therapy. And this woman, who had never asked me a single question about my condition, had decided I was a fraud based on a grocery store video. The next week, I had to sit in a meeting with HR. Casey wasn't there, but they played the video on a laptop. It showed me walking down an aisle, cane in hand, then pausing to look at something, then walking again. At one point, I set the cane in the cart for a few seconds while I reached for a box on a high shelf, then I picked it back up. The HR woman said, "Can you explain why you put the cane down?" I said, "Because I needed both hands to reach something. The cane is not glued to my palm. I have good days and bad days. This was a bad day. I used it when I needed it." She nodded but wrote something down. The investigation dragged on for 3 weeks. During that time, Casey's behavior got worse. She started mentioning my disability in team meetings. "Oh, we should let Op handle that since she's disabled and all," sarcastic, dripping with it. Amy told her to stop, but Casey wouldn't. She started leaving printouts of my handicap placard application on my desk with post-it notes that said proof. I reported every single incident. Amy backed me up. Finally, HR cleared me. They said there was no evidence of fraud. Casey was given a written warning for harassment, but the damage was done. People in the office looked at me differently. I could feel their eyes on me when I walked down the hall. Did I limp enough? Was I holding my cane right? One guy actually said, "You seem to be doing better today." I wanted to scream, then it escalated. Casey started following me outside of work. I saw her car in my neighborhood twice. I switched up my grocery store. She found that one too. I reported it to the police. They said, "Has she threatened you?" I said, "No, but she's stalking me." They said, "We can't do much unless she threatens you or breaks a law." I was in Texas, a black woman with a disability. I knew exactly how much the cops would care. I told Amy. She said, "I'm sorry, I'm doing everything I can, but HR won't fire her because she's been there 5 years." I started looking for a new job, but every night I'd lie in bed and think about that video. She had captured me at my most vulnerable, groceries on a bad day, and used it to try to ruin me. And she got a slap on the wrist. A month later, I quit the part-time job. I couldn't take the staring anymore. Casey's last dig was at the exit interview. She told HR I was running away from accountability. I walked out without looking back. I still have chronic pain. I still use my cane on bad days, and I still check the parking lot before I get out of my car, but I'm not hiding anymore. That video was supposed to prove I was a liar. Instead, it proved that some people will go to any length to tear you down, and no amount of paperwork, doctor's notes, or handicap placards will ever satisfy them. They don't want proof. They want to win. I thought that was the worst of it, but looking back, that was just the appetizer. The main course came a few years earlier when I was still at the job with Bob and Dick. I'd been at that company for 6 years. I started as an assistant, worked my way up to a mid-level manager. I had a good reputation. I got things done. Then I had a baby. That's when everything shifted. Not in my performance. I still hit every deadline, still managed my team, still came in early when needed. But Dick, the CEO, started looking at me differently. He'd make comments like, "Oh, you're back. We thought you might take more time off." I'd laugh it off, but I noticed. Meanwhile, Bob was rising like a rocket. Bob had a kid, his wife became a stay-at-home mom, and Dick thought that was the most admirable thing a man could do. Bob started showing up late, then later. Then he'd nap at his desk. I'd walk by and see him with his head down. I didn't say anything, he wasn't my problem, but Dick promoted him twice. Within a year, Bob went from being below me to being at my level, then above me. I was silently demoted, no announcement, just a reorganization where my team was given to someone else and I was told to focus on special projects. I asked for a raise, denied. I asked why, they said budget. But Bob got a raise the same quarter. Then one day Bob texts me out of the blue. Hey, we have to travel for a family emergency in January. Could you host my wife, toddler, and dog at your place for the week? If not, I'll ask the company to cover a hotel. I stared at my phone, gobsmacked. I hadn't talked to Bob in months. He didn't know where I lived. He didn't ask how I was. He just assumed I'd put up his family for a week. I texted back, sorry, that doesn't work for us. I have a toddler myself and a chronic condition. I can't host. He said, oh, okay, I'll ask Dick about the hotel. I thought that was the end. It was not. The next day, Dick calls me into his office. He doesn't sit, he paces. Bob told me you refuse to help him. He's under a lot of stress. His wife is overwhelmed and you have a big house, don't you? I said, I have a 2-bedroom apartment. He waved his hand. You could make it work. Family helps family. I said, he's not my family. He's my coworker and I'm not a hotel. Dick's face went red. You know, Bob is a great dad. He's the kind of employee we want to support. And you used to be reliable. But ever since you had that baby, you've been difficult. I didn't scream, I just said, I haven't changed, the budget changed, my title changed, my pay didn't, and now you're asking me to house a man who sleeps at his desk. No, he said, I think you need to reconsider your attitude. I said, I think I need to reconsider my employment. I walked out. I went back to my desk and updated my resume. That afternoon, HR called me in. They said Dick had filed a complaint about my unprofessional behavior. I told them the whole story. They said, we'll look into it. Nothing happened. Bob got his hotel paid for by the company. I got a formal warning for insubordination. I started job hunting the next day. It took 4 months, but I found something better. A smaller company, a real boss, a paycheck that matched my worth. On my last day, Bob came by my desk and said, hey, no hard feelings, right? I was just in a tough spot. I looked at him and said, I hope your wife enjoyed the hotel. I thought about reporting Dick to HR again, but by then I was done. I learned that some bosses will never see you as a person. They see you as a resource. And when you say no, they punish you for having a spine. But the story that started it all happened when I was 17, working at a coffee shop. I was a junior in high school, still living with my parents. My girlfriend, Sam, was the same age. She had an older sister, 24, engaged to some guy named Mike. The wedding was set for July. One day I'm working the register and my coworker nudges me. Look at those two. I look over. There's a couple in the corner, full on making out, hands everywhere, in a coffee shop, in broad daylight. I'm about to look away when I realize the woman is Sam's sister. I freeze. The guy is definitely not her fiancé. I'd met Mike once. This was someone else. I ducked behind the counter. My heart was pounding. I didn't want to be involved. I just wanted to finish my shift and go home. But after they left, I went to clean their table. The sister came back in, maybe for the bathroom, maybe she forgot something. She saw me standing there with a rag. Her face went white. She grabbed my arm. You didn't see anything. I said, I didn't see anything. She squeezed harder. I know you did. Listen to me. You tell no one, not Sam, not Mike, no one. I said, okay. I just wanted her to let go. She didn't. She said, we need to talk later. I'll find you. Then she left. I went home and tried to act normal, but 10 minutes later, Sam texts me, what's going on with you and my sister? She's freaking out. She says you have to come over. I told her I couldn't leave the house. Sam said, she'll drive to you, just sneak out. I said no. I was scared. I was 17. I didn't know how to handle a grown woman who was cheating on her fiancé and threatening me. The next few days were a nightmare. The sister kept texting me from Sam's phone. She said if I told anyone, she'd say I tried to assault her. She said no one would believe me because I was a minor and she was an adult. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. Finally, I told my mom. She called the police. The detective said they couldn't do much without proof, but they did call the sister and tell her to stay away from me. The wedding in July, canceled. Mike found out from someone else. Word got around. The sister moved out of state. Sam and I broke up a few weeks later. She said I was making her choose between family and me. I said, I'm not making you choose. I'm just telling you the truth. That was the first time I learned that being in the right doesn't mean you get to be comfortable. Sometimes you just have to survive the blast radius. Now, sitting here years later, I think about all three. The coffee shop taught me that secrets always surface. The disability video taught me that some people will try to destroy you just to make themselves feel bigger. And the boss and his family taught me that power doesn't care about fairness. I don't work at that coffee shop anymore. I don't work for Dick. I still have chronic pain and I still walk with a cane on bad days, but I also walk with my head up. Because the one thing those stories all had in common, I didn't back down. I was scared. I was angry. I cried, but I didn't disappear. And that's the part they don't expect. They think if they push hard enough, you'll fold. But sometimes you just fold your arms and say no. And you keep saying it until they get tired. I'm still saying it.